This video is sponsored by Brilliant. If you stick around to the end, I'll give you a link for 20% off a premium membership. The 1984 Super Bowl wasn't a particularly exciting moment in sports history. The Oakland Raiders trounced the Redskins 38-9. But that game was memorable not for any particular play or touchdown, but because of an ad, a call to revolution from a young and scrappy tech company from California. That company was none other than Apple, and that commercial would be praised as one of the most iconic advertisements that ushered in the new personal computing era. Apple may have started a revolution in 1984 with that ad and their personal computers, but fast forward to 2019, and they seem to be a lot more like Big Brother on the screen than the woman throwing the hammer. They've become a $750 billion behemoth that has consistently innovated in the realm of personalized tech. Recently, they claim to be innovating on another front as well, sustainability. So I'm curious whether Apple is as environmentally friendly as they say, or whether there are environmental costs hidden under their sleek, shiny surfaces. One of the biggest claims Apple has made in the last couple of years is that it now runs on 100% renewable energy. But what does that actually mean? According to Apple's most recent 2019 environmental report, approximately 66% of that renewable energy comes from projects owned by Apple, like their headquarters' massive solar roof. The other 34%, however, is a mix of direct purchasing from renewable utilities and buying renewable energy certificates, or RECs. RECs are essentially a carbon credit for renewable energy. If you buy them from a utility, somewhere in the grid, the equivalent amount of renewable electricity will be created. So theoretically, Apple could be using a percentage of fossil fuels in their energy mix, but this is made up for somewhere else in the utility grid by generating the equivalent amount of energy with renewables. That being said, this 100% renewable claim only covers a certain subsection of Apple's total operations. This includes offices, retail stores, and data centers around the world. All of those together, as Apple admits, only account for 2% of their total carbon footprint. The majority of Apple's carbon emissions, some 74%, come from the manufacturing of their products in third-party factories. In Apple's 2019 environmental report, they claim to have emitted 25.2 million metric tons of carbon dioxide, which is roughly the equivalent of putting 5.3 million new cars on the road each year. While Apple has made strides in terms of their energy usage and working with third-party suppliers during their manufacturing process, there seems to be a disconnect between that work and their release of yearly models. By constantly churning out slightly upgraded phones and computers, Apple and other tech companies have given rise to a desire for new tech, even though people might not actually need a replacement. This quick cycle paired with planned obsolescence has led to the subsequent trashing of perfectly good pieces of hardware. The Global E-Waste Monitor states that 44.7 million metric tons of e-waste was thrown out in 2016, and that number is predicted to grow to 52.2 million in 2021. Just think about how many phones or old laptops you have sitting in a random, forgotten drawer. Needless to say, we buy phones and computers way more often than we should or need to. And the rate at which Apple announces new products and the rate at which their old products wear out only hastens this cycle. This is also in part due to the lack of customizability and fixability of Apple's hardware. It's not very intuitive to just switch a battery in an Apple computer if it's dead. The repairability of Macs is so bad that the repair website iFixit gave the new 2019 13-inch MacBook Pro a 2 out of 10 for repairability. And the 2019 iPad mini and iPad Air also got a 2 out of 10. But if you're Apple, this makes sense. They are a for-profit company constantly in need of beating out the encroaching competition in order to make a bigger profit than last quarter. The harder it is for customers to repair Apple tech, the more likely they are to buy Apple's newest models. In comparison, a company like Fairphone is bucking this trend. They seek to create a more environmentally conscious and ethical phone by making their models easily repairable, modular, and longer lasting. That being said, Apple has created a token robot called Daisy that can apparently take apart and recycle 200 used iPhones per hour. But that will nowhere near scratch the surface of trashed iPhones, let alone address computer waste. It does, however, point to Apple's interest in implementing a sound recycling program for their phones. Apple does have flaws, like many other tech companies, but compared to its competitors in the field, it seems to be actively working to create the smallest carbon footprint possible for a phone or computer. However, I think an even bigger question to ask is whether it's actually possible to innovate environmentally within the bounds of a for-profit system. Should we be patting Apple on the back for their environmental efforts, despite the fact that they are a $100 billion company that could definitely be doing more to mitigate climate change? According to Apple's environmental report, they've curbed their emissions by 35% since 2015. That is substantial, but they still emitted the equivalent of 25.2 million metric tons of CO2 in 2018. Because their main focus is not environmental health or climate change, those issues will never be prioritized over selling more products. So while we should appreciate the fact that Apple is aligning its systems in a more environmentally conscious way, they still have a long way to go. So at the end of the day, should you buy something from Apple? In terms of the environment, the best thing you can do is to buy a used computer or phone. But if you absolutely need something new, then yes, Apple is a pretty decent choice. They're proving to be a leader in the tech field when it comes to sustainability and renewable energy. But in reality, the bar that they have to pass in order to gain that praise is pretty low. And supporting a more environmentally conscious company is never a better option than buying used or not buying anything at all. When we're trying to understand Apple as a company, we need to look beyond its flashy aesthetics in order to uncover the truth of their claims. Indeed, some degree of scientific thinking is necessary in order to evaluate their environmental impact. Luckily, Brilliant has an amazing course that uses puzzles to hone your critical and scientific thinking skills. Brilliant is a problem-solving website that lets you explore the realms of math and science through storytelling, code writing, and problem solving, which is exactly what you'll get when you dive into their new scientific thinking course. This course is awesome because you're not just sitting back and reading. Instead, Brilliant peppers in all sorts of quizzes to keep you engaged and learning. Ultimately, if you're like me and always looking for new ways of understanding the world, or just want to simply explore topics like geometry or physics through interactive courses, then Brilliant is the way to go. So if you want to start thinking scientifically, go to brilliant.org/OCC, or click the link in the description and sign up for free. As a bonus, the first 200 people that go to that link will get 20% off their annual premium membership. Hey everyone, Charlie here. Thanks so much for watching. I want to give a quick shout out to Chris Lamb for his generous support on Patreon. He is one of many patrons who's supporting me on my video making journey, so thank you so much. A quick note, there will not be a video in 2 weeks because I'm taking a little break, but I'll see you very soon.